We welcome you into yet another edition of the Lion Country Kia Goon and Ironhead Show, coming to you from Quaker Steak and Lube on a somewhat chilly Tuesday, relatively speaking, from the last few days.
Absolutely.
Anyway, but lots to get into today.
We skipped spring, but now it's back for a couple days, and then it'll be summer again.
Just a little brief appearance once again, and we have been going from extremes.
Oh, my God. 25 degrees on Saturday. Friday to Saturday was a 25-degree difference.
Little on the nutty side.
Yeah, it's not fat people weather. You know what I mean? That the 25-degree switch is not good for a fatty.
This is very true.
I can adjust as time goes on, and you could build my tolerance up to the heat. You just can't go from 7 to 95 overnight. I mean, that's just you're asking for the big people to go down. Don't tell the government that. They'll start changing the heat on us.
Celtics are building up their tolerance to the heat. Don't absolutely say that. Anyways, we can. I thought we'd talk a little bit about the Penn State football and just expectations for the upcoming season. The line is at 8.5 wins for Penn State, which feels like the right number to me. Like I think that 8-9 win mark is kind of where a lot of people are going to come down one side or the other as to where this thing could go.
Correct.
But as we've talked about before and in several seasons before, like I don't think it would be shocking and out of this world great in terms of overachieving for this team to get 10 or even 11 wins when you look at the talent and the recruiting classes from the last three in particular. And I also, given the trajectory and the schedule and all of that, I don't think it's outlandish to think this team could only get 6 or 7 wins in the upcoming season. But that 8-9 number, again, to me feels like that's about right in terms of where the expectation should be for this upcoming season. And truthfully, I think if Penn State gets to 9, and part of it will depend on how you get to 9. If you win the first 9 and then you have 3 blowout losses to end the season, yes, you're not going to be feeling great. But basically going in, I think if this is a 9-win team, at least as we sit here now and not knowing how that all plays out, I think most fans would say, yeah, if we get 9-3 in the upcoming season, it'll feel like we're back in the right path here, at least the right trajectory.
Yes.
And with, again, the amount of young talent, highly touted young talent from the last, what will then be 4 then recruiting classes if you go into next year, I think expectations then will be substantially higher going into the following season. Although you're going to presumably have a new starting quarterback, again, depending on how that situation plays itself out in the upcoming season.
That's another question you got right there. I mean, my first question to you would be, is it more 11 wins or 7 wins? What is? I mean, we're both on the same of the ilk. Like 9 wins is the threshold to me.
Yeah, I mean, that just feels like it would be that feels like the right number, and I think that I don't think you'd be jumping up and down, going crazy, high fives all over the place at
Correct.
9 wins, but I think you have a good feeling.
Now, my next question is that you're talking about the quarterbacks and stuff like that with the new quarterback. Okay, so say we do have 2 mid to early season losses, and it's like, do you just say, okay, Sean, pack it up, we need to move on to the next guys? And that's a huge question. I mean, that is like, I don't know how to phrase this the right way, but it's like it just seems like we're not finishing the last 2, 3, 4 years. We are not finishing strong whatsoever, and it's almost like, okay, we're out of the Big Ten race, we're out of the national title race, so it's like, we'll just move on, and I don't like the way that's happening.
To that end, let me ask you, do you not think that's kind of the trend we are going at nationally? Right. Yes, because, listen, again, if you are And on one hand, I guess you could argue that that should be what it's all about. If you're going to at least the big time programs, probably the top 20 or so programs anyway, right? Like there is kind of that expectation of at least get to the playoffs, if not win the title, or bust. Well, if that is the mentality, again, the or bust part, the problem with that is that bust can come really with your second loss and definitively with your third loss of the season.
True.
And then at that point, and I do think that has changed. We were talking a little bit last week about the mindset and the perspective of the Big Ten, and yes, you should be to win a national title, but the flip side of that is I also don't think Penn State fans, at least when I was growing up, and even throughout the 80s, which were probably the heyday overall of the Penn State program. It wasn't you go to the 83 season, they go 0-3, and it wasn't like the season was lost, right? And in fact, they turned around and it felt like a great run.
He put the young
4
Bucks
losses, right? But so and it was similar to the 68, 69. What happened there to really kind of kickstart the Penn State program under Joe Paterno, where it's like, you know what, we've got to get the young talented kids in there. But that being said, again, it wasn't that the mentality was never that, the season is over. Added to that is now the players' mentality is, even if you've had a very good season and a terrific season, you're having players now opt out of the bowl games. And again, I think it's not going to be long before, as we've also talked about, that it's once we've lost 3 games, again, what is the sense of me? Forget the bowl game. What's the sense of me in going out there and risking injury against Michigan State in a game that's going to determine whether we go to the
Capital One or the Alamo Bowl? And you got a pocket full of money now too.
Than that. Correct.
And now you got a pocket full of money. So it's like, why? What? So I go back to your original question was, after a tough early to mid-season, do guys pack it in this and that? And I think that you said the 60s, 80s, 70s, 80s, and 90s. We had that end-of-season rival in Pitt, if you recall. That was a big thing. Like, you can make or break your season with a win over your rival, and we have been looking for that rival since 1993. I mean, they really have. I mean, again, what we said last week about me and Chris were talking about, to a Wisconsin guy, and their rise to relevance was right at the time we were joining the Big Ten. And if it was just a couple years difference, I think that would have been a hell of a rivalry. You know what I mean? I really do. But that's the thing. Now it's like, you have, I don't want to say Wisconsin, Michigan and Ohio State, because that's the biggest rivalry. You look at USC and UCLA end of the year. That's a blood game. That's a big game for those teams. Do guys hang on for that game and they play tough for that? But we don't have that. We don't have that like game to look forward to at the end of the season. So, what's going to keep our guys from just saying, I'm out, I'm done? We lost 3 games out of 7. Or not our guys in general.
Well, but
across
the focus here is
college
on
football
Penn
landscape.
State.
Yes.
So, and that's, I guess my answer to that is it depends. And it depends on several things for me. Most importantly, really, is what James Franklin and the coaching staff are sensing and seeing in the locker room. If they are seeing that, the older kids have now checked out, which, again, to some degree would be understandable, then, I think you have to go younger. And part of it is seeing the chemistry. And, again, it wouldn't even necessarily be like Sean Clifford's fault or anything. But if the guys are, if the locker room is still responding to Clifford as, hey, this is our leader, this is the guy that's going to get us, out of whatever doldrums they may or may not be in, I guess at that point, then again, I don't think that's where without knowing how they're there and what the circumstances are, again, it's impossible to me to say definitively, oh yeah, no, you got to go the young route then and turn the corner. I just think there's a lot of things that are in play there that you have to have a feel and a read of the situation. And, and the other part of it is, are the young guys ready? That's,
I added another aspect to it. And I've talked about, like before, when I was at Penn State, you're done your 4.5 years. You're freaking done. You're done. You want to move on. Some of these guys are going into their 6th college football year.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
I know exactly
all right, I'm done. I'm physically done. I'm mentally done. I'm fried. I'm just going to pack it in. And that's not just at Penn State. It's going to be across the board, across college football landscape. There's a lot of guys who have a 6th year and they're using it. And do they use it to their best ability and try to maximize their talent to get to the NFL? Or if it's not working out for them, they just say, screw it, I'm done. And then screw your teammates, screw your team, all that stuff. And do you ever remember college football being this screwy? I mean, just flat out, just top to bottom, just on its ear right now.
Yes. No, I don't. And yes, it's that way because there are so many new and variable factors now in play that just weren't there before.
Yeah.
And again, I still don't know how all of this is going to shake out. It's
if anybody knows, let us know, because I don't think anybody has a freaking idea. So you want to hear my 2 cents on the whole thing, Ironhead?
Yes, sir.
I mean, we don't put the goon music. I just think that the NCAA, as we have talked about multiple times, was going to say yes to anything the Power 5 said to keep their hands in the cookie jar. Because I believe that they were already working on getting the hell out of it, going to the TV route and paying players through television and television revenue, and the NCAA goes away. They do anything they possibly can to say, okay, that's fine. You guys do that. But we want to pay players. We want players who could name and names like this. Okay, that's fine. Okay, you could do this now. You could do that now. And I think that what the NCAA did in not involving themselves is protect themselves. And we've talked about, I'm just reiterating what I've said in the last 2 years, and is that they have protected themselves from Title IX lawsuits. Because if the universities are not involved, then it doesn't have to be equal. If you're paying a football players 10 or whatever, your football team has a $15 million, they're making NIL from the university, then sure as hell they're going to be $15 million to women's sports going somewhere. That's just the nature of Title IX. Agree with it or not, that's just the way it is. And I think by the NCAA not saying, "Oh, we're going to monitor this," the universities have to monitor it. That they completely took that Title IX issue out, because that's going to be an issue. Now, if I'm a female athlete and there's other, you're wrestling. I'm football. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's just like, no, maybe your wrestling is a little bit different because you guys are so dominant. You know what I mean? That just say it's like, just say Michigan. There's Michigan's wrestling is on that tier right now of being a great or this and that or their football program. It's like they're going to be some issues coming up because people want to give money to the Michigan football program, and the wrestling program is going to get screwed, in my opinion. I don't say it's going to happen here because we have such a great fan base with the wrestling, and our culture of wrestling is so awesome that I don't think we're going to have those issues. But I think other schools are going to have the issues of, to all this money going to these certain sports. Like, I can't think after the blow up of Texas A&M with Jimbo Fisher and Nick Saban last week, I can't imagine other sports at Texas A&M being happy. Do you think that as another sport, do you think they can be happy about football players getting $32 million?
In and of itself, maybe not, but the reality is if that program is not flourishing, right? This is always the double-edged sword.
Yeah.
Is that everybody recognizes that football at these Power 5 schools, that football has to be successful, and part of being successful is, yes, doing whatever, getting the marquee players in and
True.
keeping them happy. And so or your sport doesn't exist as a varsity sport.
Well, I have a great question for you right now, Jeff.
I hear what you're saying, but yeah, I'm not sure that there's necessarily bitterness right out of the gate, because again, if those Texas A&M football or Penn State football or Alabama football competing for national titles helps all of those other sports. It helps because the revenue generated,
Correct.
the interest in the athletic programs, and so it helps both from a profile standpoint and at least potentially, and should, financially also reward those other programs. The ongoing X factor here is how that money now comes into the athletic programs and the athletic department, right? And that's still, again, everybody's guessing, and there's some movement happening, but in terms of, okay, how static is the money that comes into the athletic, I don't know whether you want to say department or programs, because again, it's right now or previous to this past year, there was a way that it came in, and it was all structured and varied from school to school for sure, but there you knew what it was. Nobody knows right now how this is changing, because again, if you are now giving, if your company X and you've been giving $100,000 to the athletic department or to the football program, and now you're giving $50,000 to individual student athletes through a variety of means, are you now only giving $50,000 only to the athletic department, or are you giving $150,000 now overall? And I don't know. I mean, I don't know the answers to all of that, but it feels like there is no way that the athletic, the stream of revenue that is coming into the athletic department could possibly be the same as what it has been, given that, again, some of this is going to get siphoned off.
Seriously, we could do 9 shows on this.
By student athletes.
Honest to God, it's great. So again, we're asking the most dominant program in sports right now, but is wrestling benefit from, not benefit, if Penn State football is not doing well, does that hurt Penn State wrestling?
And again, I think you could make I think you could argue it either way. It would ultimately depend on what how the overall money coming in is changed. And again, over a couple of years, like what has happened in the last couple of seasons for Penn State football, I don't think at the moment, right, that it's been devastating. I think there are some more challenges with ticket sales for sure, because of, not just because of that either, but as we've been talking about it, times are difficult right now from the economy, and people that love Penn State football and that are not turned off by the losing over the last couple of seasons still may be looking at it and saying, listen, we just we are at a point now where we're deciding whether to make repairs around the house that are needed, or going to Penn State football games that we can watch on TV anyway. Listen, as much as we love it, reality is setting in, and we have to. This is just something that this is a want, not a need, and we've got to give it up. That also plays into it here, and I think that combination again impacts it. I think that the impact right now is relatively small, but listen, if Penn State goes, has a losing season this season and then is 500 the following season, then there does come a point where it's like, okay, forget about it. And yes, that does have, I think, a deleterious effect on the other programs within your athletic department because, again, there's only so much. I
have a question for you,
so much money that can go around, and all of these programs, it has taken an increasing amount of money to run all of these programs because, again, going back to the 70s and 80s, all of the Penn State programs, I'm trying to think if there was an exception, and maybe there was, but all of the Penn State programs, and really football included, and I know football, listen, would reach in and, you would get the occasional Florida recruit or North Carolina recruit or whatever, but 90% of Penn State football's recruiting was in Pennsylvania and the neighboring states. Right?
Joe Paterno's 5 hour.
Right. And so, again, would you get guys here and there, and would
South
football
Carolina
go where you needed to go to get those guys? Absolutely. But, the wrestling program was, again, you would take guys from other states, but it was Pennsylvania and neighboring states. Once in a blue moon, maybe you'd get, like Chad Dubin came up from Florida. Those were very much the exceptions. Joe Hadge transferred in from LSU, but the overwhelming majority of all of the sports, and again, there were some exceptions. I think gymnastics still, just because of that sport, you had to have a little bit more of a national base. But all of these sports now, right, they are recruiting, and so there's travel, there's a lot more expense for all of these programs to remain nationally viable. You have to be out there recruiting from well beyond Pennsylvania and, bringing in the best. So all of these budgets have gone up. Well, if the football budget starts to shrink, there is no way that the other budgets aren't also going to shrink. What I'm still really curious to see, and I don't know, and I've had many conversations with many people, and my gut still tells me that eventually we will see more and more of these non-revenue sports go away at the Division I level. I don't think they're going to go away altogether. I think that they'll either remain viable club sports, a la Penn State rugby, there's several Penn State programs that have a very good record, and they're good opportunities, but they're not Division I scholarship athlete opportunities. Sure. And I think those, again, are going to shrink across the board. I don't think many, and hopefully none of these sports go away altogether at that Division I competitive level. But as I think we've talked about, my guess is that wrestling will, you'll have 40 to 50 schools and they'll be all in, and it'll be fun.
They were
so great.
Building 3 years ago. Well, they were building more and more teams, and now they're losing them again.
Yeah. Well, and they've been building. I don't know. Yeah, there's still, again, this is me guessing. Sure. On what's going to happen, but I don't think it's wrestling. I think it's lacrosse. I think it's gymnastics. I think it's baseball and softball. I think it's all of these sports that aren't football and basketball.
And we're not really competitive in any way, pretty much. You know what I mean? Not us, but like I don't know, the schools that aren't like dominant, like MAC football programs. I don't know how they're going to compete. I really do not know how they're going to compete at this level. The way it is right now, the way it's going right now.
Yeah, I think the gap is going to continue to widen between the haves and the have-nots. And then you could argue it's been a wide gap.
Even the have-have, and then there's about 10 or 15 have-haves, and then there's the haves.
Yes.
So I have an honest question. Chris, please chime in here. Are we paid differently from what channel and what time we're on, football-wise? So if you're an ESPN2 game, do you get less money than you would be in an ABC Prime? So it's the same pretty much?
Well, the overall, the network is probably paying out difference. Yeah, all of the TV revenue goes to the conference, and then
I thought just the Big Ten network just went there. Okay,
that gets distributed evenly to the conference members.
Okay.
So yeah, I mean, you're getting different money for the different. I don't know what the breakdown is.
Yeah, so you're playing 7 games on ESPN2 versus ABC. Are you making?
Yeah, but Penn State isn't getting. Penn State's getting the same amount of money from the conference as Northwestern. And it doesn't matter how. Like, you could be on 12 primetime games.
You're on,
and it's the
money.
benefit, but the downside of being in the conference is probably the Ohio States and the Penn States. If you're looking at it that way, aren't getting their fair share, but there is a lot of comfort there. There is a lot of comfort there in knowing that you are there.
Texas did that's that. Why they negotiated bigger television rights than other teams. And how the balls? I mean, honest to God, you have Oklahoma in your conference. You have Texas A&M, and you're sitting there saying you're bigger than those guys, and I don't know. It's just crazy to think about. But yes, now it's all coming together in my head that you are right. But I thought that the Big Ten money just came from the Big Ten network, and then all the other ones, ESPN and ABCs. And do we do CBS? No, the Big Ten's not on CBS, is it? No, it's just on Fox now. Fox, ABC, ESPN, and all of them. But I just thought that the revenue money, and I thought the revenue money would include all the other sports too that they put on there. But it's honest to God, we can sit here for the next 10 weeks on 5 days a week and constantly talk about the same exact thing because it's changing almost every day. So did you guys see Lane Kiffin's retweet last week of some guy from Texas talking about the Texas when Jimbo Fisher went after Saban? He retweeted this, and it's absolutely freaking hilarious that Lane Kiffin is Lane Kiffin. He's always going to be Lane Kiffin. So So this guy,
well, I don't know. These days, that's not necessarily true. There was a time when people thought Bruce Jenner would always be Bruce Jenner. So
wow, there you go. That's give me some extra seconds there. Nice. So, some guy from Texas named EBFX or whatever, College Football Effects down in Texas, he said Kiffin retweeted it. He said, it's per Ben Daniel that Jimbo has had the nerve to say it wasn't the NIL. He says, everyone is coming to Texas A&M because it's just a great place to be. Well, Jimbo at Texas A&M in 2018 had 0 5-stars. 2019 had 2 5-stars. 2020 had 2 5-stars. 2021 had 1 5-star. The NIL was introduced. 2022, 7 5-star recruits, and the highest rated class of all time is now coming to Texas A&M. It makes perfect logic. After losing to Ole Miss, Mississippi State, Arkansas, LSU, and finishing 4-4 in the SEC, it was clear the nation's elite recruits that they knew that this was the program on the rise. I was like, that's the most.
It's just a special place.
That's hilarious. But
people finally started to recognize how special it is.
College Station. Joe Bastardi has been talking for years about Texas A&M. But they listened to Bastardi finally now. But it's just, that's where I'm at. It's just, I don't know if you know any rich people in Texas, but you know the types you've seen Friday Night Lights when I talk about high school. But now you're paying these college kids, and you're going to tell me that these guys aren't going to be in Jimbo Fisher's ears saying, how come my boy ain't playing? I paid you $1 million. Why is he not good enough? Are you not a good enough coach to understand how to recruit talent, or you know how to coach it? And Jimbo Fisher's going to have to sit there and take it. Has to. But what Jay Paterno said a month ago on our show and saying that's not sustainable. And there's no freaking way it can be sustainable. There's no way, because all it takes is one guy to get burnt, a.k.a. a guy giving $1 million, just say, and then he doesn't get his bang for his buck, and the coach goes back and says, hey, at this quarterback we need to buy. Coach, bullshit. I gave you $1 million last year for that wide receiver. He didn't do stuff, and he already left here. I'm not giving you another dime. I mean, it's just going to create a whole new just pay them.
It is.
Just pay them all equally.
In the meantime, since we touched on wrestling, did want to just talk a bit about the national championships over the weekend and setting up Team X, and it was a terrific showing for both the Nittany Lion Wrestling Club and former Penn State wrestlers who are now with clubs elsewhere.
What guys elsewhere?
And, oh, yeah,
where?
A bunch of guys. Huh?
Like what? Like We got guys at Stanford and Virginia Tech. Is that where they're wrestling out of or no?
Yeah, okay. Nico's wrestling. Yeah, all over the place. But Jason Nolf getting to Final X, I think is a big deal. And I'm curious. I was talking with somebody last night about. I'm curious to see how much. I'm guessing he has closed the gap. I don't know how much on Kyle Dake, but I want to see. I'm curious to see that match just to see kind of where Jason is now. I'm not necessarily expecting Jason to defeat Kyle Dake right now, but I do think you're going to see a much different bout than last time around, or bouts than last time around.
What's your prediction?
I think. I think Dake will be the world team member, but I think Nolf. I think my hope and guess is that the gap has been substantially shortened.
Dake right now? Dake,
we'll see. He's kind of in the prime, probably getting into the late end.
Okay, that's what I was going to. What's the wrestler?
Jason's probably kind of just at the start, but I think when you look at the Nittany Lion Wrestling Club / Penn State opportunities here on the world team. I think Thomas Gilman and Kyle Snyder are both favorites at their. Well, I don't think. I know they're both favorites at their weights to get there. David Taylor, same thing. Although I will say, and I think Taylor will be there. Zahid Valencia is very impressive. I think Taylor is just on a little different level right now. As many of those, Olympians from this past year are.
Those two guys are going at it. It's like the longest wrestling match of all time physically. Like, they're both tall and lanky, right?
Yeah, and I thought Hall, I thought Mark Hall, Valencia is just a really tough matchup because of that length for Hall. I'm sure there will be some ongoing adjustments attempted to be made. That's just one of those that, again, it's just a tough draw. The Zane Rutherford Jordan Oliver match is probably going to be one of the most intriguing and talked about matchups at Final X this year. And I think again, for Penn State fans, Vincenzo Joseph, the Chance Marsteller match was a terrific match. Marsteller's throw at the end was very impressive, but Joseph is right there, and he still has very limited freestyle experience. So what he did, I thought was very impressive, given, again, a relatively short resume here on the freestyle front. And Marsteller is actually one of the really, I think, great reclamation stories in wrestling right now, because that guy's life was just a disaster, and I think thanks to a lot of people, including Scott Moore, who I think reached out and really tried to help him through his off the mat struggles and gave him the opportunity to get back on there. And again, it's taken him. It's been a really long road back. He was back at the end of his college career in terms of having his life together.
Yep.
But this is a guy that was being talked about in the same breath as Kerry Colad and Dan Gable.
He's kind of came here, right? Had issue here.
Well, he never wrestled here, no, and then never went to Penn State.
Here.
But he's a guy that again I think is now pretty easy to root for, and wrestles at a great pace. It's the type of wrestling that you like to watch, and it's just kind of neat to see somebody be able to really stick with it, and. It has been a very gradual process for Marsteller to get to this stage and to this competitive point of his career. But it'll be exciting to see what happens here in a couple of weeks with what happens with Final X. I don't know now what his official club is. I don't know if he's
you have to have a club to wrestle out of
Lock Haven. Yeah, well, I think they all have. Yeah, you're working out with the club, so most of them yeah, I think you would.
Now, I have an honest question.
Yeah.
You know as well as I do, when we went to college, there were some crazy wrestlers.
Yeah.
We didn't have social media. Does that kid have those kind of issues, if there wasn't all the social media people talking?
Yeah, I mean, the issues are still there, whether or not they're as known.
We all had the issues.
I don't know. That's. I mean, some of the stuff that went on, I think, would have been news no matter what.
Now, explain to me Final X. Give me the 2 minutes synopsis.
So, well, it's basically now, and I like the way they've done it. So it's basically just the final 2 competitors at each weight class in a best of 3 championship series. So it builds up through the tournaments leading into the U.S. Open and then the national championship, and then depending on the weight, there was some, I guess, some confusion with some about the way the process works. Basically, if you are an Olympic medalist from this past year, you are in Final X automatically. So you're not having to go through the qualifying process of the U.S. Open.
In the
Zane Rutherford and Jordan Oliver.
Or you're in the final for Final X if you won.
Yeah. And then like Jordan Oliver and Zane Rutherford, the reason they didn't wrestle in the finals at the U.S. Open is that is your final X now at that weight. So I think there were. Now I'm going to get it mixed up, but I think there's at least 3 weights right where there were where you wouldn't have had an Olympian in there because there's only 6 weights or 4 weights where you wouldn't have an Olympian because there's 10 weights for the World Championships and 6 for the Olympics. So
I want to say this, and that is that you can tell me if I'm wrong, but it seems to me that wrestling has really, really, really circled the wagons and fixed itself, because I don't remember this much stuff going on. Maybe I just watch it more, or I'm around you too damn much, or something like that.
I think
I really think that it's like more. It's getting more mainstream.
Yeah, I think the freestyle. I think the rules changes that they've made, and there's still. I wish they would still change the overtime. The tie-breaking procedure. I think there's a better way to do it, but I think it is more fan-friendly. I think it is easier to understand. I think the freestyle rule changes have made it more adaptable for the folk style U.S. wrestlers to have success on the international level with freestyle. And I think there's been more focus for sure on freestyle now in this country from the earlier ages on. And, the women's wrestling remains very entertaining. Some of the matches were just thrilling bouts and terrific action. And I think, for the long-term health and viability of the sport, women's wrestling needs to continue to grow, and it's on the right trajectory right now. But getting more and more young girls involved and keeping them involved through high school, there is right now. There's a lot of growth at the younger levels, and again, it needs to continue to grow. And then we need more opportunities here at the high school level and certainly at the collegiate level, again, to continue to allow the sport to grow and remain healthy on the men's side. That's, again, going to have to be a big part of the equation. But, yeah, I thought it was a great U.S. Open, a lot of thrilling matches. I thought Carter Starachi wrestled really well. And, again, I think he's learning some things, and I think his future is very, very bright on the freestyle level. Nick Lee, I've had a couple of people ask. I don't know. I'll try to get up sometime this week. I'm hoping. Not sure if I'll be able to, but I'd like to just find out. I don't know if something was bothering him or if he just had a bad couple of matches. But he was certainly not wrestling at the end of the periods the way we've become accustomed to Nick Lee wrestling. But I just think there's a lot of fun and good things for this program to build on looking ahead. And Alex Facundo, by the way, won the under 20 spot on the world team excuse me, a couple weeks ago. And I think Alex, I am guilty of, I hate it when people put too much expectations on guys coming out. At the same time, it is impossible to ignore what Alex Facundo came into the program with and has the redshirt year under his belt. But when you watch the way he is competing right now, and listen, freestyle success does not necessarily translate to huge folk style success. It's rare that you have somebody great in freestyle that just bombs out in folk style. But, you can be fantastic at one or the other and just good in the other. I think Facunda is going to be the next great Nittany Lion here. And again, I don't know, how many national titles, how many All-America honors we're talking about, but I think we're going to be talking about somebody that is going to be very, very competitive at the highest levels pretty much out of the chute here next season. And probably say the same thing about Shane Van Ness at probably 49 next year as well. And, the biggest question to me right now for Penn State wrestling in terms of next season's lineup is Levi Haynes and whether or not we see him by the end of the year. And I think, Matt Lee and Terrell Barraclaw will battle it out, would be my expectation for the starting spot at the start of the season. And I think, again, it's just going to depend how quickly Levi Haynes establishes himself at an elite level as to whether or not he ends up finishing out the next season. I think Haynes could end up finishing out next season even if Barraclaw and or Matt Lee are performing at a high level. Haynes is, again, just another one of those kind of rare talents and just has that mindset that you're looking for. And I think just the whole package. And I think the fact that he's been able to get some collegiate experience this past year with the Opens and has been around the program as much as he has and soaking up as much as he can from the legendary figures that are around that program right now. Again, I've had a couple people asking me if I think anybody can beat Penn State next year. And there's two answers to it. One is yes, because anything can happen. It's still sports. And we've seen lots of locks over the years not be locks. That being said, it is going to take something really special. If this Penn State team stays healthy and if these guys all, continue to progress the way they all have throughout their careers to this point. I mean, Roman Bravo Young, Carter Starace, Aaron Brooks, and Max Dean alone are going to give you a chance, right, to win the national title. You'll throw Greg Kirkfleet in there, who I think is, in my mind, there's three guys that could win the national title next year at heavyweight. And I think Greg Kirkfleet and Colton Schultz are the two leading contenders. I know Tony Cassiope has had Kirkfleet's number to some degree at the collegiate level. I'll still bet on Kirkfleet if they meet and when they meet again in the upcoming season. But I think that, so that there's half of your lineup that are going to be contending. None of them are guaranteed a national title next year.
True.
And I think, Roman has gotten the better of Dayton Fix, but Fix is an elite wrestler. It wouldn't be shocking to see Fix, turn that around. Mekhi Lewis is an outstanding wrestler for Virginia Tech. It wouldn't be shocking to see him beat Carter Starace next year. Aaron Brooks, I think, is going to be the probably a prohibitive favorite at 184 next season.
Going for 3?
And then,
but he's 2 more years left, right? So he could be a 4-time? Could be.
Yeah, Starachi has a chance to be a 5-time champion.
And that'll be
if that
unmatched, right?
all plays out. Correct.
What's
and
the
listen, Max Dean will have the hardest road ahead of him because he's going to have, AJ Ferrari presumably returning healthy for Oklahoma State.
Yep.
And listen, I think Michael Beard at Lehigh now is also that weight class has probably 4 or 5 guys that are I think will be in serious contention for a title next year. And Max Dean obviously is one of them and could very well win it again. But I think he probably of the returning champions for Penn State has the toughest path to repeating again. And then again, I think Ray Kirkfleet is likely to be a finalist again if he can stay healthy. And then you start looking at the rest of the lineup, and I think again you have 2 studs who will be in as newcomers, in Van Ness presumably at 49 and Facundo at 65. And I think both of them, again, I don't know exactly where they're going to fit in on the national scene, but they're going to be there. They're going to be somewhere competing with the best at their weight classes. I think Robbie Howard had a terrific showing at the under-20 championships. I think, I forget if it was 7 or 8. I think it was 8 straight wins that he had after that first-round loss to come back and get 3rd. And I think Howard, again, is another guy that if he can stay healthy, again, I don't know exactly where on that national stage he's going to fall, but it's going to be somewhere up there. It's going to be closer to the top than the bottom. And then Bo Bartlett, how I think 141 is clearly a more natural weight for him. I think he has to adjust some things with his style to be to win more often. I mean, he's competitive, has been competitive in most of his matches over the last 2 years, but I think that's a guy that probably needs to jump a level to get to where he wants to be and to be, in the mix with what we're talking about in terms of what these other guys can accomplish. But that's a pretty rock solid lineup and team. And I think it's going to be a neat season for Penn State because there is such a nice mix of the veterans and the new blood that you're kind of really excited to see and find out exactly where they fit on the national scene. And I think having that mix is a good and healthy thing for the program as well, because again, it gives you that veteran leadership. It gives you the guys who have been there, done that, know what's going on, still want to get better, and still, again, you saw Starachi has some things that he wants to work on at the next level. Brooks has some things that he wants to work on to get to the next level. So, I mean, all of these guys have room for improvement, but I think it has a chance to be as exciting of a season as there's been yet.
Brooks and David, what are they, comparable weights, same weights?
Now they're pretty much the same.
All right, so this is what I just said. It blows my mind that does David and Schneider and those guys still work out with our team, or is David over at the M2?
No, they'll come
again. I've talked about this a million times with you. It just like blows my mind that is such a freaking benefit to our guys. Like Brooks can go there and say, David, I want you to beat the living crap out of me.
Yep.
I want you to beat my ass all summer. Do what you can. I want to get better. I got to get to that next step. And but does David do that? But how does David train? Kale? How does a guy like Schneider train? Well,
listen, Brooks is right there. I mean, so David trains with, first of all of these guys, and not just here, but again across the country. David Taylor's at a point now where he can call up the phone, and listen, Kyle Dakin, he will roll around a lot. I mean, all of those national team guys are.
It's amazing.
You have the elite of the elite, and listen, you have other even guys from other teams that are coming in to the U.S. to train from time to time, or vice versa. U.S. will go out on, hey, while we're here for a week, let's roll around and see if we can.
So it's the equivalent of me coming to Penn State and Mike Munchak and Steve Wisniewski are in my offensive line room. Like, let's go, guys.
Yep,
that's what it is.
That's pretty much exactly what it is.
Freaking believable that's how it is. I mean, it's awesome. I mean, just imagine. I mean, egos are they checked at the door there? I mean, because they're all looking at the one guy who have the biggest ego.
They are, and it is still to me one of the people are always what's the secret of Penn State's success, and I think the biggest secret, and I don't think it's a secret, but it is the humility with which these guys, and it starts with Cale and Casey and Cody, but I mean, right on down through. And I'm not saying that there's, when you're out on the mat, I'm not saying that there isn't an ego there and that, hey, I know, but there's enough humility to know that no matter. Wrestling to me is a lot like golf, right? There's no golfer anywhere ever. Tiger Woods, Jack Nicklaus, who it's like, well, no, I know everything, so I got it. I don't need. They all when you get to the highest levels, that's when Tiger Woods was seeking. Hey, how do I change my swing? I know I need to become better, and all of these guys, Cale, again, starting with Cale Sanderson. I mean, Kyle Snyder is as humble a guy and as accomplished as anybody has ever been in wrestling at his age, and he's a guy that is just constantly seeking
so awesome.
new knowledge and knows that there's always ways to improve, always things you can learn, always new techniques or little adjustments you can make to adjust to what other guys are doing in adjusting to you. And that's kind of the fun part about watching wrestling at that level is, it is a chess match, but it is a chess match with the most grueling of physical circumstances, right? Like it's not just out thinking and it's then being able to get your body to go do what you're asking it to do and what you're and it's amazing. I mean, it really is just absolutely amazing what these guys are able to do when you're talking about.
I have one question
in the elite level of wrestling.
I get all the way back. You said women's wrestling is on its way up.
Yeah,
Carrie's niece who's wrestled her whole life. She's probably in her early teens, maybe a little bit younger right now. When does the cross go from you're wrestling boys to now when you're wrestling women or girls? When does that depend on where you're
right
from?
Now. Yeah, right now it depends. I mean,
but is there a state high school wrestling tournament for women, for girls?
They have one now, and they're working to get it. I don't think it's PIAA. It's a state tournament, but I don't, and I could be wrong about this. I don't think it's PIAA sanctioned yet, and I think it has to do with the number of programs. But I think they're getting close. I think there's only a few states that have the state governing body sanctioned championships, but I think there are several that are looking to have that happen here within the next year or two. And
so if you don't have enough,
I think it's an exciting time for wrestling in general, but for women's wrestling in particular, because there is definitely an investment and a commitment to it right now that we've not seen before.
Good. So, I mean, that's always my worry. I mean, they're always going. So I go home to Carrie's family. They're like, "Oh yeah, well, she had to wrestle this boy last week," and it's just like, Jesus, God,
yeah.
When is it going to turn? But if you're from small town USA, she may not have the wherewithal to wrestle other girls.
Right.
I mean, so would there be like, if it would be a PIAA thing, would you wrestle in tournaments around the state to become eligible for PIAA, or does that have to be high school wrestling versus other?
Right now you can wrestle. Girls can wrestle at the
males
can wrestle. Yeah, in the PIAA, but
you're starting to get the hope when you're 15 to 18, where
right. The hope is to get sooner rather than later to the point where there's a girls.
Now you're the same weight, but there's
right.
The boys now are much stronger than her right now.
Yes,
they're there because they're getting to that obviously puberty point. So odd to say the least, but it is what it is.
No question.
Informative show, Ironhead.
The what's that?
Informative show. I want to go back. I want to go. I want to go back to the 1991 NFL roster across the league and see all the Penn State players and see who would be in my practice field back in the day. I think Matt Millen would be playing middle linebacker. An old Matt Millen sitting there playing linebacker. I mean, you'd have Shane Conlin. Jesus, God. You know, a lot of cats out there, a lot of tough dudes out there. But Andre Collins, Tim Johnson.
Oh, yeah.
Holy crap. Oh, Lord. That'd be pretty impressive. That would be, I mean, that would just be fun to sit there and say, like, wow, who would be in your locker room? Who would you be practicing with? Now, that just doesn't happen because, obviously, I would say because football and basketball are so monitored by the NCAA. And they don't want NFL guys cohabitating with college guys because it turns into a money thing. That's what I would think personally. It's just not for, well, now they're making more. But the kid from Pitt's making more than Juju next year. That's crazy to me. Unbelievable. It's out of control. Fix it. Put the genie back in the bottle. Just pay them all the same. Say, you know what? Keep your money. We effed up.
Not
pay each player. Then it's gone. Then it's over. I mean, it's gone no matter what. It's gone. It's over what we love. No doubt about it.
Yeah. And it's the.
I'm a women's wrestling fan.
Whatever the next iteration is
ground level
what we need to figure out and how much
the next
tolerance fans will have for it.
All right. So when I was in college, who was the guy from the point guard? Anthony from UNLV, right? Greg Anthony. So he was he owned a T-shirt company, but he was collecting royalties for all this. So he actually was not on scholarship with the UNLV. He paid for his own scholarship because he was a professional. So what happens to Kyler Murray when he was playing for the Oakland A's and accepted the Oakland A's money? He had to pay for his education in Oklahoma, remember? So now we're going to get to the point soon where it's going to be, well, now you got to pay for your education. If you're a professional you're a professional player. Why are we giving you a scholarship also? It's going to go there's nothing good is ever going to come out of what they've done in the last 2 years.
Like Philadelphia Eagles legend Jeremy
Correct. Mr. Downhill Skier.
Yes,
sued the NCAA and the USA Olympics how many times?
Yep.
All right. Good show. Informative.
Well, we'll go with that. And we will be back on Thursday. Until then, be good and be safe.
Best 2 out of 3?
It's one fantastic ride. The turbocharged, tech-inspired new Kia Forte.
There's always something happening at Quaker Steak Lube. From live music to exciting new flavors, meet your friends and refuel at your local Quaker Steak Lube today. Can't slow down? Then order online. Pick up and get back on the road. Find us at thelube.com.